One kid killing the parents is a bad seed. Two kids killing the parents is a bad family.
It was very unusual and might have happened before, but that would almost never happen. Certainly not any big issue.
So he goes upstairs to change his clothes. How long before he comes back down?
Maybe like half hour, 45 minutes, somewhere around there. Maybe not that long. I can't remember. It seemed like a long time.
And where's your mother during this time?
Mom was upstairs with Dad.
And he had told you to wait for him in the study. Is that correct?
Right.
Did you go into the study as soon as he told you to go in there?
Yeah.
Did you remain in there?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Did you go up the stairs and say, "What's taking so long? I need to talk to you. This is important"? Or?
No, I remember sitting on the couch. I think it was the little green couch, and I remember wanting to get my notes out of my pocket to look at them because I was starting to blank out, and too afraid. I didn't want Dad to catch me, obviously, with notes. So that would be the first sign of weakness. So I didn't look at him, and I just waited, and I tried to think about what I wanted to say, but I was real nervous. And he came down.
And what happened when he came down? Did he come into the study?
He came into the study. And he sat in the higher chair that we have there.
So a chair that was higher than where you were seated?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And the first thing I noticed is that he hadn't changed, which actually didn't surprise me, but made me nervous.
Why do you say it didn't surprise you?
I knew that he would be talking to my mother upstairs, and I knew that was why he wanted to go upstairs, was to talk to my mother. At least that's what I felt. And he came down in his suit and with his jacket off, and he just sat there and he lit a cigarette and he waited.
Did he say anything like, "What's going on," or "What do you need to talk to me about," or did he just sit there and wait?
No, he just waited.
And what did you do?
I waited, and we had this awkward period, just waiting for my dad to talk first, because he always does. And eventually I realized he wasn't, and so I just sort of went ahead with what I had planned to say as best I could.
What did you say?
Which was that I knew everything that was going on between him and Erik, and that it had to stop, and that it had to end, and that I didn't want to disrupt the family, and I wasn't going to tell anybody, but that there had to be some changes, and if I had to, we would come out of the house, we would leave the house if he didn't want us to live there, but that we wanted to live there for now, and I wanted to take Erik to Princeton with me, and then maybe transfer to UCLA, and that this had to happen, and that I meant it.
How did you feel when you were telling him all this?
Sort of just really worrying about the words more than anything.
And did you say it all at one time like you did here, or did you say something and then he said something?
No, he didn't say anything. He was looking around the room, and he had his cigarette lit, and I remember he was playing with his ear, like he does a lot.
Did he look at you at all during this?
Didn't look at me at all, which at some point I was sort of rambling, trying to get all the words out. At some point I realized I had finished saying what I was saying, and I stopped, and we had another silence. And then he said,
Did he continue looking around and playing with his ear during this silence? Or did he change?
Well, I don't remember, but at some point, once I stopped, he asked me if I was finished. And then I said that I was. And he put his cigarette, he had crossed his legs were crossed, he put his cigarette out. And then he started talking.
And did his position change, or Did he just...
No, well, now he was looking at me, and he was basically looking down at me, so I was pretty far below him. Because this couch sort of, you sunk back in it, and he said what he said, which is...
What did he say?
Basically, he said, "You listen to me."
What was his tone of voice?
Very, his usual tone of voice when you had better understand what he was saying.
Can you do it? Can you imitate it?
Pretty well.
Can you show me?
He just said, "You listen to me." And
what else did he say? And if you can do it the way he said it to you.
I remember most of what he said. He said, "What I do with my son is none of your business." And he said, "I warn you, don't throw your life away. Just stay out of it." I remember that. And then he said something else, and then he said that, "Let me tell you what's going to happen." He said, "You're going back to Princeton, and your brother's going to UCLA like we planned, and we're going to forget this conversation ever took place."
And when he finished talking, what happened?
I interrupted him. He didn't get to finish talking. Oh, he started saying this, and I knew what was happening. It was just like our other conversations we had where he was just dismissing it. And I told him, I swore and told him he was a fucking sick person. And I told him no, and that he wasn't going to touch my brother again. And I threatened him.
How did you threaten him?
I told him that I would tell everybody I would tell everybody everything about him. And I would tell the police, and that I would tell the family. And
did you
I was yelling, and it was pretty. I may have said some more things and swore at him or something. And as soon as
How were you feeling?
I was feeling like I was losing control of the conversation. It wasn't going to go well. I had a feeling it wasn't going to go well. And I also was bracing myself for a punch or something physical. And he was, it seemed like he was going to do that when I was saying those things to him. So I don't think anybody had ever spoken to him like that in his whole life.
Were you pretty out of control when you were?
I was pretty.
Did you do it on purpose, or had you lost control?
No, I had lost control because my brother and I had discussed me not threatening him, if at all possible, and I didn't really think that I was going to have to, and I ended up just doing it, and that was a mistake.
So you're screaming at him, you're telling him he's sick, and you're going to tell everybody.
Right.
What's he doing while you're doing this?
Well, he seemed like he was going to attack me in some way, or I don't know. He was leaning forward. His legs are uncrossed, and that's basically all I remember. And then after I threatened him, his demeanor changed pretty drastically.
How did it change?
He sort of relaxed. He sat back, and he just sort of looked at me, and that made me stop. Because he seemed so relaxed.
What happened after you stopped?
Then he said, "We all make choices in life, son. Erik made his, and you've made yours." And then he just looked at me, and he got up to leave.
What did you think?
I thought, oh my God, he thinks I'm going to tell people, regardless. I knew what he was thinking, and I told him, I started pleading with him before he left. I got up and said, "Dad, I'm only going to tell people if you don't stop touching Erik, if it doesn't stop." And he just looked at me and said, "You're going to tell everyone anyway." And he left. And I sat back down, thinking that it was a disaster, and that my brother was I had just made it 100 times worse.
What did you think was going to happen?
I thought we were in danger. I thought he felt he had no choice.
But to what?
That he would kill us. That he would get rid of us in some way.
Why?
Because he thought I was going to ruin him. And he was going to tell my mother what I said. And I knew immediately what her reaction would be. You can never let that happen to us. And
what do you mean to never let that happen to us? What do you mean by that?
well, their image was their life. At least that's how I felt, especially about my mother. And I don't know if I thought afterwards exactly what my dad was thinking that I was going to do, because I would never have ever told anybody. But I did make that threat, and I think he just felt that maybe my own stuff with him, or I was trying to get revenge or something. Or I'm not sure what he thought.
Why do you say you wouldn't have ever told anybody?
I would not have done that to him. I would never have told people. It was really an idle threat. I never had thought about telling people. I didn't know who I was going to tell. I wasn't going to tell the police. I wasn't going to tell relatives. I would have taken my brother out of the house before I had this conversation, but I wouldn't have just told people.
How long did you stay in the den after your dad left?
Not long. I went back immediately. I pretty much, after I thought about the conversation a few minutes, I went straight to the guest house and waited for Erik and figured he would be coming home.
And did you see Erik later on that night?
Yes.
When was it that you saw Erik?
I saw Erik.
How much after the conversation?
Not very long. I don't remember how long, but not very long. And I saw him with Mom.
And what were the...
Actually, I heard the screaming between Erik and Mom, and then I heard my brother running up the, I live on the second floor, heard him running up the stairs and opened the door.
Where did you hear the screaming from? From outside?
Just outside,
or from the
yeah.
house?
Just outside.
And could you tell what the words were, or you could just hear the voices?
I couldn't tell what the words were, but I knew it was my mother and Erik.
And did they come inside at some point in time?
Erik came in, running in first, screaming that Mom knows. And I sort of grabbed him and said, you know, Mom knows what? And he said about Dad and I, and he was screaming and he was crying too. Then I didn't have a chance to talk to him again because my mother came running in up the stairs. You know, just extremely upset from the conversation she had had with Erik. And
so you said you tried to calm Erik down, or you grabbed Erik in some way, and then your mother came in?
mm-hmm.
What did you do after that?
I confronted her. I reacted from what Erik said and just accused her and said, how can you not have done anything? How could you have known?
What did you say? I mean, were you saying it calmly like you are now, or?
No, I was yelling too. You had to yell to get anything in when my mother was in that state. And so I was yelling.
What were you yelling?
Something to the effect of, how could you not have done anything? How could you know? I don't remember the exact words. And she immediately said that I knew. I had known what was going on. She said nobody ever helped her. And then...
Did you know what she meant by that? Nobody'd ever helped her?
No. Although I could guess. But... then I said something about that how could she say that I knew and I didn't do anything, and we were yelling, and at that point she just said she hated us and swore at us and called us a bastard, and just ran out of the room and back down the stairs. And then my brother and I started talking.
What did you and your brother start talking about?
Well, as soon as my mom left, he started screaming that Dad was going to kill us. And that and that Mom knows, and they're going to kill us. And I said, what did Dad say? How do you know that? And I tried to get out of him what had happened, and because it was something he said something had happened to him in the room. Dad had come upstairs, I guess he had gone up to his room, and Dad had found him in his room or heard him in the room and done something to him, which I don't remember exactly what he said he did, but he did something to him. And had started yelling at him about how he had screwed up and betrayed him, and he had told me, and now I was going to ruin him, and that he was never going to let that happen.
Yes, Your Honor.
And then that's basically what I remember he said. He said a few other things, and I don't remember exactly, but he was convinced they were going to kill us. He was then wanted to know what I had said to Dad, and basically was very hysterical, accusing me of doing something that we hadn't talked about or something. And I told him that I had threatened him, and that I told him what he had said, and I felt that they could kill us.
Was Erik mad at you for what you had done?
He was mad, and he was clearly still hysterical about whatever had happened with his dad not too long before, and I was very shaken up by the fact that Dad had done anything to him at all. I did not expect that. In fact, that was the last thing I ever could imagine. And I immediately felt like we had to get out of the house.
So did you leave the house then?
No, we talked about it first.
What did you talk about?
We tried to relax, and went over to the couches like we had before and talked. And I said, we need to get out of the house. He clearly felt they were going to kill us. I believed the same thing. And we just had to get out of the house, and he immediately said that he couldn't, and that would be the craziest thing to do, and that he wasn't going to just run away and let Dad find him and kill him. And
why was it going to be the craziest thing to do, to run away?
Well, that's what he said, and we talked about it, and we talked about a lot of different options, but that was the one that I wanted to do. And I asked him why he felt that, and he looked at me like I was crazy with Dad's power and who he was and who my mother was, that where were we going to go? And he kept asking me that in a very, like, how could I think that way? Where are we going to go? Where are we going to hide? And we started to talk about it, and I agreed pretty quickly that there was no place that my parents could not find us, and that would, running away, since we decided that we couldn't be positive that they were going to kill us, and we didn't certainly know when or how, and that might be safer to stay in the house and not bring it to a head by running away.
How would it bring it to a head if your parents found that you were gone the next morning? How would that bring it to a head?
Well, obviously, I just felt that if I took off with my brother and we were gone past the evening, he would think I was, that would be he would immediately think I was telling people. I wasn't even going to wait. And, nothing could be more alarming to him. And I thought, I didn't think that he could kill us immediately. But I did think it was just a matter of time. My brother and I both felt that. So we talked about other things we could do briefly.
Well, what options did you talk about in terms of running away? Did you talk about going to relatives?
We talked about telling relatives
And-
the situation. Well, actually, Erik mentioned relatives on the other coast, and I told him the closest person I was to that I trusted was Aunt Terry, and almost everything that happened in my life over there, my mom found out, and that I was sure it was Terry, and that was a really bad option. And we really didn't, you know, I wasn't going to go to any of my tennis coaches, and there was nobody that we felt we could go to where we would be safe for any length of time. So we talked about the police, and that was pretty much dismissed right away.
Why?
We just felt, you know, we could go to the police and explain to them the situation, but what could they do? I mean, they might press charges against my dad, and then we would be through for sure. And you know, then that would be trying to ruin him, and I didn't feel the police could protect us. It was certainly, you know, we talked about it very briefly, but seriously, and then just felt that, mostly we felt that if I went to the police, that they would kill us for sure, and that the police would not be able to protect us. And also, you know, we're in Beverly Hills. My dad was a rich guy, and with a lot of power, and there was some concern that, not that they wouldn't believe us, but that they wouldn't do anything.
Well, what about, why weren't your relatives, your other relatives? You talked about Aunt Terry, but you have other relatives. Why couldn't you go to...
Well, I mean, my Aunt Terry is the only relative that I knew that stood up to my dad on anything. And again, she seemed to relay the information of what was happening with me to my mom, so that wasn't a possibility. And everybody else was just completely intimidated by my father, looked up to him. Even the men in the family who were the strongest, people like Carlos Baralt and other, the male members, the uncles, came to him for business advice, to look over their dealings, to get his 2 cents. And it just wasn't realistic to say, you know, here we are, we have this problem, this is what my dad's doing, you know, protect us.
What about just running away, going and living in a foreign country?
Well, we just didn't feel that we could do that.
Why?
Because we didn't feel that it was safe. We felt that he could find us. My dad flies all over the world. And it was more than that. It was more than just the money and the flying and stuff. It was that I felt my dad had the connections to find us and to get rid of us. And if we ran away, he could do that at his leisure. And, you know, he could just tell a story that we ran away for whatever reasons. People would believe that, and we would disappear. And that seemed like a horrible idea. After we had talked about it, I agreed completely that it was the worst idea and we should stay in the house, where it might be more difficult to just kill us without anyone knowing, and we would at least know where they are. And maybe they would never do it. That was another thing we talked about, and that I hoped.
That maybe it wouldn't happen?
Right.
Did you talk about what to do in terms of staying in the house and making sure that you were safe?
We talked about, I think I was the one that said that we weren't just going to stay around waiting to die. We were going to try and get some ways of defending ourselves and protection. And Erik mentioned the guns that we knew were in the house, and I figured there were probably more in the house. And dismissed that as a bad idea. They might notice they were missing and so on. So we just decided that we would buy our own the next day.
The next day was Friday.
Right.
Is that correct? And did Erik spend the night in the guest house again, if you remember, or in the main house?
On Thursday night?
Yes.
He stayed with me, and he stayed on the couch.
And Friday morning, when you got up, was Erik doing something?
Yeah, he was playing tennis. Well, he was practicing a serve or whatever.
And did you go out and talk to him about what you had talked about the night before?
Yes.
And what was that conversation?
That was basically me explaining to Erik that he had to realize how serious the situation was, and I didn't know. He seemed to be trying to pretend it wasn't happening, and I was feeling very unsafe, sort of lost, and distant from my dad, and scared, and I was sort of relying on my little brother to some extent, and now he was pretending things were not happening, basically. And I told him, what do you? We decided we were going to go and get some guns to protect ourselves, and this was serious, and that just because it was a new day and you want it to go away doesn't make it go away. And I talked to him for quite a while about that and what did he want to do, and he agreed that he mentioned something about that it would also be bad if that he didn't want Dad to know he wasn't practicing, and that could start a confrontation that could come to a head too, and something about that. But basically he was just pretending it wasn't happening. And so after I talked to him, he agreed we had to go get some guns like we had planned. And
did you go to get guns?
We did.
And did you go somewhere in Los Angeles or somewhere else?
We went to the Big Five.
Where? Which city are we in?
Santa Monica.
And what did you try to buy at the Big Five in Santa Monica?
We went to buy handguns that we could carry around, and weren't able to do that.
Why not?
Well, we went there and we inquired about the handguns, and I don't remember that Big Five as well, but basically we were in the process of trying to pick a handgun and buy one, and then we were told that we weren't going to be able to leave the store with them, that it took 2 weeks, a waiting period where they would have to check our credentials, and they do this mandatory check. We'd have to wait 2 weeks and come back, and so that was, we hadn't known that, and we just sort of, he told us the only thing you can buy over the counter is rifles, shotguns, so we just left pretty much confused.
Why wasn't it going to be good enough to get them in 2 weeks?
Well, clearly we could not wait 2 weeks, and that I really felt that my dad was going to act, that either he would act very quickly or my mom would make something happen fast. We weren't going to have a lot of time, because I did feel my dad thought I was going to tell people. But in any case, we would never have waited. We wanted to get the protection right away.
And they told you that you could buy shotguns or rifles at that store, is that correct? But you didn't buy them there?
Well, we didn't want to buy shotguns and rifles. We wanted handguns, and because we wanted them to walk around the house with. And so we didn't know what to do at that point, and we just got back in Erik's car and started driving and thinking about what we could do at that point.
And where did you drive to?
We drove south down into, toward the La Jolla area, where I had been a couple times for tennis and so on. And one of my cousins used to go to school there.
And as you were driving down there, did you and Erik talk?
Yes.
And what did you talk about?
He started to tell me, I just felt I felt bad from Tuesday.
What do you mean you felt bad for Tuesday?
Well, I was very harsh with him Tuesday. He was clearly telling me something that was, just killing him as far as telling me, and I was you know, basically the statement, "Did you like it?" was was bothering me that I had said that, and so I started asking him more about what had actually happened with my dad, and say it was okay to talk about it, and we started to talk about that. Although it was very hard for me to listen to, I talked to him about it.
Why was it hard for you to listen to?